Welcome back to our channel, where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. We are excited to share the following news: King Charles drop a huge announcement to Meghan after she begs for a royal title. A confidential source has revealed that Meghan Markle has been seeking to communicate with King Charles to persuade him to reconsider his final decision on her royal title. The royal family is now facing unprecedented strife amidst the turmoil that transformed Windsor, the Crown's final decree. Its arrival was devoid of any royal announcement and was not inscribed on the fine parchment of palace stationery. Neither of these statements was true. No public address or well-prepared press statement was issued to mitigate the impact. The conclusion was reached amid the unsettling hush of a decision made in an enclosed space. King Charles Roman III, a sovereign still delineating the parameters of his reign, rendered a judgment inside the hushed and opulent corridors of Buckingham Palace, where the burden of a millennium of history influences every choice made within. The choice was not born from paternal fury, but rather from an overwhelming need. The choice was composed and intentional, and according to witnesses, it was as irreversible as the turning of a page in history. Upon its arrival over the Atlantic Ocean to the sunlit slopes of Monteto, California, the message was unequivocal from the first. The message would halt a duchess in her tracks and instill profound terror in a coterie of influential strategists. Furthermore, it would render a prince his own progeny utterly unprepared. The message was both a declaration and an institutional decision that concluded an entire chapter of the royal story. Although spoken in a subdued tone, the words emanating from the palace had the force of an earthquake. "It is over." The line that does not break a public display of escalating tensions, intense interviews, and a transatlantic Cold War waged via media proxies has persisted for many years. The relationship between the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and the House of Windsor has seen a prolonged and arduous deterioration over many years. Nonetheless, within the prevailing circumstances, an assumption endured that a door, although slightly, remained ajar. A return path, future reconciliation, and a role potentially part-time or only ceremonial were consistently deemed implausible. At this time, that premise has been systematically and irrevocably dismantled. According to insiders with extensive insight into palace dynamics, King Charles has established a firm and unwavering boundary that effectively creates a new constitutional reality for the Sussexes. This does not represent a temporary cooling-off period or a withdrawal from major initiatives. In the unambiguous words of a top assistant, it is a required last barrier. The decision conveyed with an unequivocal finality that allowed no scope for negotiation, persuasion, or the great allure often used by Meghan Markle, effectively precludes any possibility of an official or semi-official reinstatement to royal life. To understand the significance of this act, it is essential to transcend the familial drama and examine the foundational structure of the British monarchy. The Crown is not only a family, it is an institution, sometimes termed the firm. The survival of the Crown depends on rigorous obedience to protocol, a meticulously managed narrative, and the preservation of a sacred divide between the sovereign and the populace. In the context of monarchy, human emotions must ultimately yield to the institution's ability to sustain long-term stability. King Charles, who served as heir apparent for an unprecedented 70 years, saw his mother, Queen Elizabeth Roman II, navigate several crises, from the abdication of her uncle Edward Roman VII to the tumultuous divorces of 3 of her 4 children by placing the crown above all other considerations. Her motto, "Never complain, never explain," reflects a strategy of stoic silence used to preserve the enigma of the monarchy. Charles's decision, however, unique in its execution, stems from the same institutional inclination. The current world, characterized by a perpetual news cycle, a culture of influencers, and the commodification of human narratives, poses an existential threat to an institution historically founded on discretion. The king's action is a direct response to a perceived threat, the formation of a rival, unauthorized court in California. This court exploits the majesty and symbolism of the British monarchy while remaining independent of its regulations, responsibilities, and supervision. The palace could no longer tolerate such a condition. The barrier was not established to penalize a son or daughter in law. Instead, it was created to protect the crown for future generations, specifically for Prince William and the yet-to-born Prince George. Rather than fulfilling the duty of a father, the king functioned as the supreme guardian of a legacy, indicators of the form of a ghost monarchy. The ultimate and definitive move taken by the palace was not prompted by a single headline, a single documentary, or a single podcast that was contentious. Royal insiders are in agreement over this matter. It was a reaction to a pattern of conduct that had been gradually increasing for many months behind the scenes, and it was extremely troubling to them. This was a response to the pattern of behavior. In the meanwhile, senior advisors had been putting together a dossier that included evidence rather than complaints. The fact that Meghan Markle continued to intentionally position herself as if she were still functioning inside the royal realm was something that they monitored with increasing anxiety. This occurred long after she had stepped away from formal obligations. In the hushed crisis sessions that the king held, analysis of the evidence line by line gave a clear picture of what had transpired. The subtle but deliberate mentions of royal life in public speeches, the carefully chosen wording in brand teasers that suggested an ongoing connection to the institution, and the high-profile projects that seemed to blur the line between her personal brand and the royal legacy she had formerly left behind, were all examples of the ways in which she had blurred the line between the two. When it comes to the realm of contemporary branding, they were not just occurrences, rather, they were deliberate operations. In the eyes of the palace, this was a serious violation of protocol. The Duchess was, in their opinion, drawing from the deep well of power that the monarchy has, which includes its symbols, its history, and its worldwide reputation, without carrying out responsibilities that come along with it, or maintaining the neutrality that is associated with it. The institution has always been threatened by competing claims or angry relatives throughout its history. Nevertheless, these challenges have often been fought for succession or territory. Constitutional experts have long warned of the peculiar risk that is offered by a ghost monarchy. The story is the contemporary danger that we face in an era in which public perception is of the utmost importance. The existence of two competing versions of the monarchy, one official based in London and bound by ancient tradition, and one unofficial based in Hollywood and driven by the dynamics of celebrity, creates a fatal confusion within the public. According to reports, one of the advisors delivered the message to the king in the most direct manner imaginable, saying, "Your Majesty, if you do not act now, you will lose control of the royal narrative. This will not end on its own." Concern reached a fever pitch over what insiders describe as a last wave of warning indicators. A new brand launch, a flawlessly choreographed public address, and a worldwide campaign all appeared to reflect a strategy of acting as a rival royal institution. The final wave of warning indications with regard to King Charles, and possibly more specifically with regard to the Prince of Wales. This was an unsustainable circumstance. According to a story, Prince William previously said that it would be amazing if Harry ever came to the coronation. Prince William has been a supporter of a more stringent and streamlined monarchy for a very long time. It was widely recorded among the personnel at the palace that he was frustrated by Meghan's continuing use of her HR title, despite the fact that she had been advised not to do so by the late Queen on several occasions. Not only was the pattern seen from California considered as a branding exercise, but it was also perceived as a direct threat to the authority and uniqueness of the crown that he is destined to inherit. Although the king had first hoped that the matter would resolve itself, he eventually came to the realization that being silent was no longer a feasible option during this time. It was claimed by his advisors that inaction would be seen as a sign of weakness, which would provide an opportunity for an unofficial story to become a widely acknowledged fact. A council of the king, who is silent in war, Buckingham Palace, went into a condition of controlled lockdown, almost completely quiet in the days leading up to the conclusive judgment. To the naked eye, there was little indication that a crisis was occurring. Nevertheless, inside its walls, the apparatus of the state was operating with a serious and pressing purpose. There were a number of high-level discussions that lasted for many days, and King Charles was the one who called them together. The talks that took place were not casual family gatherings. Rather, they were councils of war that were attended by the most influential individuals inside the organization. Members of the Privy Council, which is an old council of advisors to the king, were present throughout the event. In addition to them, top communications leaders who are the builders of the royal image, legal strategists who are specialists in the intricate interaction between constitutional and common law, and etiquette officers who are the fideous protectors of royal tradition, joined them. These are the advisors who are only brought into the picture when the monarchy is confronted with a structural and long-term danger. A source that was there said that the king entered the room with a calm but unwavering firmness. This is the type of quiet authority that indicates that a decision has already been taken in principle, and the only thing that is left to do is identify the way by which it will be carried out. There were several documents dispersed over enormous mahogany tables. Researchers looked into timelines. Frame by frame and line by line, forensic rigor was used in the examination of Meghan's public appearances, marketing tactics, interviews, and oblique allusions to her royal background. It was not an environment of wrath, but rather one of icy, unyielding analysis that prevailed. The issue at hand was not whether or not to take action. Rather, it was how to take action in a manner that was conclusive, long-lasting, and legally indisputable. According to the warning of one advisor, Meghan's growing prominence in the United States has the potential to cause misunderstanding on a worldwide scale, resulting in a rift in the way that world views the British monarchy. One more person brought up the potentially disastrous precedent that it would establish for future generations of minor royals who would be tempted to make money off of their genealogy for financial gain. During the whole conversation, Charles listened attentively, taking in every point and considering every possible outcome. The metamorphosis that he underwent left many in the room speechless. A guy who was often regarded as a man of profound feeling and at times hesitation, the Prince of Wales had passed away. Standing in his place was the king, a man who was motivated by a single overarching responsibility. At the conclusion of the last meeting, each and every senior advisor had worked together to obtain a full and total agreement. Now was the time for the monarchy to take action. It is not after the next public relations stunt or after the next scandal. Rather, it is before that, with a single calm remark that lingered in the air with the weight of a historical decree. The king brought the last session to a close by saying, "This chapter must end." Within a few hours, the decision was official. In addition to the preparation of notifications and the drafting of papers, a distinct communication channel was also developed. Instead of issuing a news release, the monarchy was ready to take action in the form of a surgical strike that was intended to be felt on a personal and deep level. This was done to ensure that its message could not be misunderstood or twisted in any way. Montecito shockwave in the news. When the news finally made its way to the expansive Montecito home, it did not come with a royal ceremony. The velvet envelope that contained the official letter did not have a heraldic seal. The delivery was done in a stealthy and confidential manner, and it was done with a digital iciness that made the substance of the message much more harsh. Meghan was the only recipient of this communication all by herself. A number of individuals who are close to the home have said that the Duchess was taken entirely by surprise. It was neither wrath nor grief that she first responded with. Rather, it was startled stillness. As her mind struggled to grasp the extreme finality of the words, she allegedly read the letter at least once and then again. The mood in the home suddenly moved from astonishment to disbelief, and then to what one source described as full panic mode. Her voice, which was always so measured and confident, purportedly trembled as she demanded answers. This occurred when the reality of the situation began to sink in. Who had given sanction to this? Was Harry aware of the situation? There is little doubt that this was a misunderstanding together with a negotiation strategy that might be rebutted. However, this was not the case when compared to previous palace communications, which were often characterized by diplomatic ambiguity and the use of mild language. This was significantly different. At no point were there any loopholes, grounds for appeal, or olive branches extended to the parties involved. This was the end of a road, and it had come just as the king had wanted it to, without any prior notice and with no other options available. In the process of describing Meghan's reaction, a source said something that struck a chord with everyone who heard it. Meghan never saw this coming, not at this moment, not in this way. The source continued by saying that Meghan had always believed that the palace would leave a small window open for her, a chance someday to return to rewrite the story and to rebuild what was wrong. Not only did this choice shut that window, but it also permanently blocked it off. According to sources, Meghan started pacing the room as the full weight of the ruling became obvious. Her steps were restless and uneven from beginning to end. There was a tremendous feeling of betrayal, as well as tears mounting irritation and disappointment. For the very first time since she had left the royal world, she was not only being marginalized or ignored. Rather, she was being officially and utterly shut off from the other members of the royal family. Meanwhile, Prince Harry was struggling to come to terms with his own personal grief. In a gesture of paternal respect, King Charles reportedly told his son immediately before the communication was given to Meghan. This information comes from sources inside the kingdom. From the perspective of a parent to his son, the king considered that Harry deserved to hear it from him. Nevertheless, such kindness did not do much to mitigate the impact of a blow that struck at the very core of Harry's dilemma. His response was a complicated combination of disbelief, irritation, and a more profound and agonizing comprehension of the situation. Over the course of many years, he had tried to construct a connection between the two worlds that he inhabited, the old institution into which he was born and the modern life that he had chosen. It was during that single chat that he saw his father tearing down the bridge. According to the reports, Harry resisted not out of anger, but rather out of genuine emotion. He made a request for more time for his father to review the decision, and for the judgment to be rescinded or postponed. The tone of the king, on the other hand, was characterized as calm, steady, and courteous by a top advisor. Additionally, the tone was regarded as totally unshakable. At that moment, Harry knew his father was no longer only building a wall between the palace and the general people. Rather, he was drawing a line between the institution and Meghan. At long last, Harry was able to break the emotional barrier and tell his wife the news. Meghan was not the only one who shed tears. Harry was also among those who shed tears. Once again, he was forced to play the part that he detested the most. The guy who was stuck between two worlds that both no longer wanted to interact with one another. Not only was he heartbroken by his father's choice, but he was also heartbroken by his own inability to change the situation. Exile's architectural characteristics. When it was finally put into action, the king's ultimate decision was not only a declaration of purpose. Rather, it was a comprehensive architectural concept for a new border that was more rigid. There are 3 significant elements included inside the order, each of which is more decisive than any move that has been taken in the past, according to palace insiders who have read the directive. To begin, Meghan Markle will no longer be allowed to make any references to hints about or ties to the monarchy in any prospective initiatives, businesses, or media endeavors without first receiving specific prior written authorization from the palace. As a result, the age of gray zone royal branding has basically come to an end. The carefully cultivated references, as well as the symbolic tributes to her royal lineage, are now illegal to use. There would be a prompt and official reaction to any effort to carry out such an action. In the second place, any and all royal privileges or courtesies that were still in existence have been completely and irrevocably taken away. These are the minor informal concessions that are seldom spoken, but carry a tremendous amount of weight, discreet access to certain powerful groups. Informal travel benefits and the symbolic connections that come with being related to the sovereign, even if it is only in a remote way. It was characterized by a person with knowledge of the situation, as a complete reset of limits that ought to have been established years ago. Third, and more importantly, the palace will no longer intervene to protect her from international disputes. This is possibly the most significant change. In the past, even after they had left, there was a tacit agreement that the institution would, in the event that it was required to do so, give some degree of diplomatic padding in order to save the family's reputation. This protection is no longer available. In the event that disagreements emerge, Buckingham Palace will not make any remarks that are more sympathetic or make any modifications behind the scenes. When she takes the stage on a global scale for the very first time, she will be completely independent. In a straightforward manner, a consultant said, "This is not punishment. Rather, it is protection for the institution." This decision represents a significant turning point in history. Over the course of many years, the monarchy has been sitting on the defensive, taking in criticism and praying for peace. This action indicates a change toward offensive play. The stillness emanating from the palace is no longer the silence of someone who is patient. Rather, it is the silence of a door that is securely shut. It is not a personal message, but rather a systemic one. The person Meghan was not the object of the king's attention. Rather, it was the pattern that she represented. Rather than those who have left the institution, he is establishing a precedent for the future by guaranteeing that those who are still a part of it are in charge of the royal narrative, which is the basic foundation upon which the authority of the crown sits. From the state of California, the counteroffensive in the world that Meghan Markle now lives in. Quiet is synonymous with failure. The instant she and her team realized that the king's choice was irreversible, the shock and terror that they had been experiencing transformed into strategic preparation. An emergency call was organized within a matter of hours, according to reports, and it brought together her complete team of public relations professionals, brand managers, and legal advisors who were headquartered in the United States. The vibe in the room was taut and intense, like that of a war room that was getting ready for a counteroffensive. The attitude was not one of surrender. Almost immediately, they started sketching out alternative reactions and doing an analysis of the new environment that Charles had created. One of the most significant challenges is figuring out how to recreate and maintain a worldwide brand without the same factor that was responsible for its first ascent to prominence, the closeness to royalty. The constraints imposed by the king have struck at the very core of her public character. According to those with knowledge of the situation, there were three leading contenders. A silent reset was the initial strategy, which consisted of a time of calm composure, appearing in public with subtle elegance and attempting to elicit popular sympathy by portraying the palace's action as harsh and cruel. A controlled, high-profile media appearance, perhaps a major interview or a new documentary segment that would highlight the systemic obstacles she faced. Subtly positioning the king's decision as the final piece of evidence proving the institution's rigidity was the second strategy. He referred to this strategy as narrative reclamation. A frontal counterattack was the third option, and it was reputedly the one that her most aggressive advisors preferred the most. This would include making a strong and pointed speech, or doing a project that makes a subtle reference to injustice, calls into doubt the authority of the monarchy, and engages in a direct confrontation with the battle for public opinion. For someone like Meghan, who is a master of storytelling, this is the realm in which she is able to exercise the most authority. The aftermath has only started to take shape. King Charles has taken a deliberate decision that places the institution of the monarchy ahead of familial connections in order to ensure that it will continue to exist for the next century. He has come to an end to a chapter that he considered was causing instability within the crown. In doing so, however, it is possible that he has unintentionally initiated a new one. Montecito is in the process of developing a counter-strategy, which is one that is audacious, calculating, and has the potential to be explosive. As the world waits for the Duchess to make her next move, everyone watches. In the sand, the king has drawn his line of demarcation. It is now unknown if Meghan Markle will show respect for it, or whether she will make an effort to remove it and draw one of her own. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and say goodbye for now.